fenomenal, sí, estupendo, estupendo. Fenomenal, pues estupendo, porque tengo que comentar un par de cosas. Venga, venga. Hello, hello, friends, ladies and gentlemen, estimada Macarena, authorities. In the name of the Alhambra Dreamers, those who work the Alhambra to make the magic happen every day, in its many shapes and forms, like this one, or that one that you see through the window, or that one, let me give you a warm, heartfelt welcome to the first Forum of European Managers. We're here for the good efforts of our friends at the Alianza de Paisajes Culturales, the Alliance of Cultural Landscapes, but also because we have a joyous moment. We are in the process of designing our new strategic plan, the second one, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape the future, to be part of that future, and to do things right. And by doing so, we're honoring the legacy of our forefathers here at el Patronato de la Alhambra y Generalife. We are honoring the memories of those giants, those visionaries, whose names resound in these halls and in our hearts, like Torres Balbás, Bermúdez Pareja, Prieto Moreno, or Fernández. We are here to honor the idea that they had 100 years ago of bringing about a revolution in cultural management by using science to do the scientific preservation, restoration, and enhancement of our heritage. And in doing so, they also honored the legacy of the Alhambra, that is not just breathtaking, brutal beauty, but also wicked intelligence. It's science, it's mathematics, proportions, geometry, its wondrous water system, which is engineering. And that scientific revolution in the art of cultural management, designing a public visit to get enough funds to do the restorations, for example, was one of the main ideas back then. That revolution brought the Alhambra back from the brink of collapse, from the brink of oblivion. Because the Alhambra also has a sad story where we were about to lose it. It was this close to being dissolved, to being lost forever. Its walls raped of its amazing tiles, its eye-watering poetry, and inspiring ornament that awed Owen Jones, for example. Its land also stripped by the reckless sale of land even in the sacred palatial city. Today, maybe an example of good coexistence between the public and the private in a monument. And these people, by using the scientific method, rigorosity, and a lot of heart, brought about the rebirth of the Alhambra to this magnificent, irresistible, and wondrous place that is today, and that we have the honor and the responsibility to manage. So that's what we are here for, to honor this legacy and to discuss, to present our common ideas and our common experience, to learn, and to be able to make each and one of our heritages and our common and shared heritage, make these plans, this idea of lighting the future in the middle of the storm, and being able to, for the people at the 101st Forum of European Managers in the year 21-25, to be able to say that today, 23rd of April, some visionaries met in Granada to bring the future that is today. So let me finish by saying, like the Nazareth visitors of old, let the stars guide our thoughts, let the prosperous winds lift them up. Let the proceedings begin.
Buenos días. Tiene la palabra Berta de San Cristóbal. Ella es la jefe de la Unidad de Europa y América del Norte del Centro del Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO. Berta, cuando quieras.
Gracias, María. Buenos días. Good morning. Estimados colegas, es un verdadero placer para la UNESCO, para el Centro de Patrimonio Mundial, poderse dirigir a todos ustedes en esta ocasión con motivo de la apertura de este primer foro de gestores de patrimonio mundial de Europa. En primer lugar, quiero expresar mi sincero agradecimiento al Ministerio de Cultura de España, al Patronato de la Alhambra y el Generalife y a la Junta de Andalucía y muy especialmente a la Alianza de Paisajes Culturales del Patrimonio Mundial por acoger y apoyar esta iniciativa y este encuentro en un lugar verdaderamente único. Acabamos de tener una introducción apasionante. Efectivamente, la Alhambra no es solo un sitio emblemático del patrimonio mundial, es también un símbolo de una historia compartida, de un encuentro de culturas y un ejemplo de excelencia en la gestión del patrimonio mundial y de enfoque transdisciplinar. Es sin duda un escenario inspirador para las conversaciones que tendremos todos juntos en los próximos días. Desde la UNESCO celebramos los esfuerzos realizados por reunir un gran número de gestores de patrimonio mundial en Europa con el objetivo de fortalecer el intercambio, de fomentar la colaboración entre todos nosotros y de contribuir a una red cada vez más sólida y más amplia. Y queremos animarles a ampliar esta red, a continuar trabajando para que progresivamente llegue a abarcar el mayor número de gestores posibles y, si fuera posible, también a nuestros colegas de América del Norte. Este tipo de plataformas son indispensables para garantizar una cooperación regular y eficaz con los gestores de patrimonio mundial de una región que, como bien saben, representa casi la mitad de los bienes inscritos en la lista de patrimonio mundial. Quisiera también saludar y agradecer la presencia de las tres organizaciones consultivas del Comité de Patrimonio Mundial, ICOMOS, ICROM y UICN. Su compromiso técnico y su acompañamiento constante son esenciales para el buen funcionamiento del sistema de patrimonio mundial. Como representante de la UNESCO, es un privilegio para mí poder trabajar con todos ustedes en los 2 próximos días. Es una ocasión única, no tengo muchas ocasiones de trabajar 48 horas seguidas con los gestores de patrimonio mundial, pero efectivamente esta es la labor fundamental y constitutiva para una base de la protección del patrimonio mundial sostenible y una valoración inclusiva y con la participación de todos los actores. Así que confío en que este foro contribuirá también a reforzar el sentimiento de ustedes como gestores de pertenecer a una comunidad de práctica, de pertenecer a un proceso que en algunos casos puede parecer alejado de la realidad que ustedes viven cada día como gestores. Así que muchas gracias por su compromiso, por su experiencia y por su entusiasmo y espero que tengamos días de conversaciones productivas y de una auténtica conexión entre colegas. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Berta. Tiene ahora la palabra María Gúndez Leira. Ella es la subdirectora general de la Dirección de Gestión y Coordinación de Bienes Culturales del Ministerio de Cultura de España. Adelante, María, cuando quieras.
Muchas gracias, María, y muchas gracias a todos ustedes por estar hoy aquí, por haber hecho el esfuerzo de dejar durante 2 días el ordenador y sus responsabilidades, sabiendo que el mail nunca para y cuando vuelvan tendrán todavía más trabajo. Así que, ante todo, gracias a ustedes por venir. Muchísimas gracias a la UNESCO por estar hoy aquí. Voy a dar especialmente gracias a Berta, la conozco desde hace 15 años que trabajamos juntas y es la primera vez que coincido con ella en un encuentro en España. O sea que realmente lo que ha dicho es verdad. Es un privilegio poder tenerla hoy aquí. Muchas gracias a la UNESCO porque siempre responde a las solicitudes de participación por parte de España. Muchísimas gracias a la Alhambra. Este lugar es inigualable, es uno de los lugares más emblemáticos de la historia de nuestro país. Es, como ha dicho Berta, un lugar en el que conviven muchas historias, un intercambio de distintas culturas y además un ejemplo de convivencia, ¿no? Y un lugar que vamos a decir magnífico, maravilloso y exquisitamente bello. Muchas gracias a la Junta de Andalucía. Es un placer trabajar con la Junta, siempre dispuesto a darlo todo y bueno, tenemos una gran relación y además es una de las comunidades autónomas de España con más bienes declarados Patrimonio Mundial. Y muchísimas gracias a la Alianza de Paisajes por todo el trabajo que están haciendo, no solamente con este foro, sino en los últimos años, esa labor de formación y de encuentros que están haciendo con los demás sitios de paisajes culturales declarados en España y con otros sitios de Europa, y especialmente gracias a María porque su labor para poder hacer que la alianza siga adelante y bueno, y soy muy consciente del trabajo que le ha supuesto este encuentro y no puedo dejar de dar las gracias a mi equipo, a Laura y Chema, porque yo estoy aquí solamente en nombre de la Dirección General. Los que realmente han trabajado han sido ellos, yo más bien no he hecho nada, y quería excusar la ausencia de mi directora general, que quería venir, lo tenía en agenda, lo que pasa es que no nos dimos cuenta que hoy es el Día del Libro, que sabéis que para nosotros es un día muy importante, se entrega el premio Cervantes y nuestra directora general tenía que estar en la entrega del premio Cervantes. Felicidades a todos por ser hoy el Día del Libro. En España y en Cataluña es un día especialmente importante. Aparte de dar todas las gracias, sí que quisiera destacar que estos foros y estos encuentros son lugares muy importantes de intercambio de experiencias, sobre todo para los gestores, que tenéis esa gran responsabilidad de conservar, proteger, difundir un patrimonio que tiene ese valor universal excepcional. Esa gran responsabilidad que hacéis con gran éxito, pero que no deja de ser mucho trabajo, tanto por conservar como por conseguir difundir, conseguir llegar a tener ese concepto de identidad patrimonial con el que llevamos trabajando desde el Ministerio de Cultura tantos años. Sabemos que no es fácil, que es muy complejo, pero solamente consiguiendo ese concepto y consiguiendo darlo a conocer el patrimonio, pues implicando a la ciudadanía, que son realmente los detentores y los poseedores de ese patrimonio, podemos conseguir cumplir esas 5 Cs que dice siempre la Convención de Patrimonio Mundial. Y por otro lado, estos encuentros en los que nos reunimos gestores de distintos ámbitos y de distintos continentes. Aquí estamos representados hoy 3 continentes y gracias también a los distintos organismos que también están aquí, como SUICEN e ICROM. Bueno, pues también respondemos a ese principio que tiene la UNESCO, ¿no?, y que tiene la Convención, que es el de cooperación internacional y el del intercambio internacional, ¿no? Yo creo que son elementos fundamentales para poder conseguir un mundo más justo, un mundo más equilibrado, y a través del patrimonio podemos construir esa idea de cultura y paz, ¿no? Que responde un poco, y lo quería unir también, a que este encuentro está también asociado a las líneas de trabajo que estamos haciendo para Mondiacult, ese encuentro de ministros de cultura que va a tener lugar a finales de septiembre en Barcelona, que acoge España, donde esperamos que vengan no los 194 países, pero sí por lo menos 140 ministros de cultura, donde se van a tratar distintos temas relacionados con la cultura, y uno de ellos está asociado al patrimonio, es uno de los 8 temas, el patrimonio, y otro de ellos es la importancia de esa cooperación internacional. Así que bueno, yo creo que este encuentro es muy importante también para poder ir construyendo esas líneas de trabajo de Mondiacult. Muchas gracias a todos y espero que estos días sean muy fructíferos, que haya ese intercambio y que podamos compartir experiencias.
Bueno, y ahora es mi turno y me voy a presentar a mí misma. Algunos ya me conocéis, otros no. Soy María del Pozo. He estado en contacto con la mayoría de los que estáis aquí. Soy la que andaba detrás de esos correos que habéis recibido alguno de vosotros. Soy la secretaria general de la Alianza de Paisajes Culturales y Sitios Afines Patrimonio Mundial, que es la asociación que reúne en España, Portugal y Andorra a 14 sitios Patrimonio Mundial. Es decir, somos una asociación ibérica, pero he de decir que estamos organizando este foro con la colaboración estrecha de la red de asociaciones europeas de sitios Patrimonio Mundial, de la que forman parte, por ejemplo, World Heritage UK, de la que forma parte la Asociación Francesa de Sitios Patrimonio Mundial, de la que forma parte la Asociación Italiana de Bienes Culturales, la Asociación Eslovena de Sitios Patrimonio Mundial, y un largo número de asociaciones a lo largo y ancho de Europa, que en su momento creímos que era la ocasión para hacer una iniciativa conjunta, y finalmente tengo la satisfacción de estar hoy aquí, veros a todos enfrente y decir, bueno, finalmente lo conseguimos, este proyecto común, no sin el apoyo, desde luego, enorme que el Ministerio de Cultura, y aprovecho para dar las gracias, María, ha dado a este proyecto, y sin duda la Junta de Andalucía a través del Patronato de la Alhambra, sin vuestra ayuda. Sin vuestra ayuda tampoco esto hubiera sido posible. Entonces, es justo reconocer y agradecer, y sobre todo lo que más os quiero transmitir en este momento es la satisfacción de veros frente a mí. Gracias por venir, porque es un esfuerzo también grande el que habéis hecho desde vuestros respectivos sitios para estar hoy aquí. Y solo me queda decir lo siguiente: espero que os merezca la pena. Espero que esto sea el inicio de algo bueno y mejor para el futuro, para nosotros como gestores de sitios de patrimonio mundial y para el patrimonio mundial europeo y, por extensión, para el patrimonio mundial del mundo, ¿verdad? Para el patrimonio mundial. Muchas gracias a todos. Y ahora sí, doy la palabra por último a Macarena O'Neill. Ella es la viceconsejera de Cultura de la Junta de Andalucía. Gracias, Macarena. Adelante. Gracias.
Muy buenos días a todos. La verdad que comenzar una jornada de trabajo aquí en la Alhambra es un lujo, director, que tú tienes todos los días. Pero todos los demás tenemos esa oportunidad de afrontar nuestro día en un lugar tan maravilloso y en una ciudad tan maravillosa como es la ciudad de Granada, que reboza cultura por todos lados. Director, muchísimas gracias por abrir las puertas de la Alhambra a proyectos, a foros que hablan del patrimonio, que hablan de la cultura, que hablan de cómo hacerlo compatible con la vida, de cómo hacerlo, cómo difundirlo y cómo conservarlo. Jefa de la Unidad Europea de América del Norte y del Centro del Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí y estar siempre pendiente del patrimonio mundial. Su directora general de Gestión y Coordinación de Bienes Culturales del Ministerio, que siempre nos damos la mano porque yo creo que la cultura es un lugar de encuentro, la cultura es un punto donde todos coincidimos y todos perseguimos pues los mismos objetivos con el patrimonio y con la cultura, y por tanto muchísimas gracias por ese trabajo compartido que tenemos, pues compartimos muchísima cultura. Secretaria General de la Alianza de Paisajes Culturales y Sitios Afines al Patrimonio Mundial, querida María, muchísimas gracias por invitarnos, por organizar este foro tan interesante que tenemos el salón lleno y seguramente van a ser 2 jornadas inolvidables. Yo quería también saludar, si me permitís, a mis compañeros de la Consejería de Cultura, a la directora general de Museos, querida Aurora, al delegado territorial de Granada, al delegado territorial de Turismo, Cultura y Deporte, y también al representante del Ayuntamiento de Granada, como he dicho antes, esta maravillosa ciudad con tantísima historia. Mi consejera no podía estar hoy tampoco, por lo mismo celebramos el Día del Libro en todas las bibliotecas de Andalucía, es un día importante para la cultura también, y no podía estar, pero sí quería que os trasladara pues todo su afecto y que le hubiera encantado estar aquí, que estará muy atenta a lo que ocurra en este foro. Ella siempre dice, y ahora comprenderéis por qué lo dice, que Andalucía es una tierra donde puedes hacer un viaje en la historia. Un viaje desde la edad de cobre, y puedes ir en cada una de las ciudades, en cada una de ellas te vas a encontrar casi todas las etapas históricas. Muchas veces no tienes que salir de un pueblecito, de una ciudad, de una provincia o de toda Andalucía, como ocurre también en el resto de España, para hacer un largo viaje a través de la historia. Amigas y amigos, pues daros la bienvenida a la Alhambra y Generalife, un conjunto palatino que hace ya más de 40 años, en concreto en 1984, recibió una gran noticia, y recibió esa gran noticia desde Buenos Aires, una ciudad en la que en ese momento se reunía la 8ª sesión del Comité de Convención para la Protección del Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO. La noticia no fue otra que su inscripción en la lista de Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO, una inscripción además que venía acompañada por otro bien andaluz, como es la Mezquita Catedral de Córdoba, y por otros 3 bienes patrimoniales españoles, como son la Catedral de Burgos, el Monasterio del Escorial y las obras arquitectónicas de Gaudí. Era la primera vez que la UNESCO incluía a obras españolas en la lista mundial, y se terminaba así con casi 15 años de esa ausencia de obras patrimoniales españolas en esta prestigiosa lista mundial. Y hoy, 40 años después, España cuenta con 50 bienes inscritos en la línea de Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO, y 8 de los cuales están aquí en Andalucía. 2 de ellos tienen una categoría ampliada, una doble categoría, y porque posteriormente su grado de protección fue ampliado. Estamos hablando de la Alhambra Generalife, que 10 años después fue ampliado por el Albaicín. La Mezquita Catedral de Córdoba fue ampliado en el centro histórico de la ciudad. Luego está la Catedral, el Alcázar y el Archivo de Indias de Sevilla, que por cierto está aquí la directora del Archivo de India. Muchísimas gracias por estar hoy aquí. Qué pedazo de archivo y qué de historia acumula el archivo. Yo invito a todos los presentes a que hagan una visita al Archivo de India. Las pinturas rupestres del arco mediterráneo de la península ibérica, los conjuntos renacentistas de Úbeda y Baeza, los dólmenes de Antequera, la ciudad califal de Medina Zahara y el Parque Nacional de Doñana, que en 1994 fue incluido en la lista de bien natural. A esta lista de patrimonios también se suman 8 manifestaciones culturales reconocidas como patrimonio inmaterial, que van desde el flamenco, el flamenco tan identitario de Andalucía, que además este año cumple su 15 aniversario, a la dieta del Mediterráneo o al toque manual de campanas. Y sea como sea, Andalucía en todos estos años, por esa riqueza patrimonial y ese patrimonio mundial que atesora, pues ha adquirido experiencia en la gestión del patrimonio. Pero a pesar de todos esos años, seguimos siendo igual de conscientes que el primer día de la responsabilidad que supone y de lo exigente que es estar en este club, en este magnífico club de patrimonio mundial, en esta familia europea comprometida con la transmisión de nuestra historia. Implica, además, muchas obligaciones, así como retos apasionantes en el día a día. Retos como ser referentes en materia de conservación, de gestión y difusión del patrimonio, de cómo conjugar la salvaguarda del bien y su difusión para el conocimiento y el disfrute de todos los ciudadanos. Un desafío que abordamos desde la experiencia, pero que hoy también tenemos herramientas y nuevos conocimientos que nos llevan a través de las nuevas tecnologías, desde la inteligencia artificial hasta las más recientes técnicas de conservación del patrimonio. Foros como este, foros donde vuestra experiencia la vaya a poner en común, son foros fundamentales porque son espacios idóneos para aprender, compartir experiencias, miedos, dificultades, estrategias y posibles soluciones a todos los retos que se nos plantean en el día a día. Así que os voy a dar las gracias de antemano a todos los participantes, a los más de 70 gestores europeos y observadores de los países americanos que participáis en alguna de las 5 mesas y talleres en los que vais a abordar temas tan interesantes como el cambio climático, el turismo sostenible, como las buenas y malas prácticas en la gestión, la sensibilización y divulgación de los valores del patrimonio histórico. Sé que este encuentro se va a desarrollar durante estos días de forma intensa y que nacerá un documento con algunas conclusiones que estoy convencida que nos van a servir como hoja de ruta para futuras actuaciones dentro de nuestro día a día y en la gestión de nuestro patrimonio. La consejera me dice que espera con ilusión y las conclusiones de este foro para poderlas luego analizar y poderlas aplicar en todo este patrimonio, no solo en el patrimonio mundial, sino en ese rico patrimonio cultural que tenemos en nuestra tierra. Y luego no quería terminar sin dar las gracias a todos los equipos que hacen posible este encuentro, a los participantes por haber venido hasta aquí, a los equipos de las distintas instituciones que han organizado, a los que han ideado el foro, a aquellos que han puesto lo mejor de sí mismos para que todos estén a gusto, acogidos, al personal de la Alhambra, que estoy viendo por aquí, algunos de ellos. Muchísimas gracias por el trabajo, porque sin vuestro trabajo, que está detrás, que no se entera, que es silencioso, pues estos foros no podrían ser posibles. Así que muchísimas gracias y que tengáis muy buenas jornadas y buenas mesas de debate en pro del patrimonio mundial. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Macarena. Bueno, y ahora sí que vamos a empezar, digamos, la parte más de contenido de este foro, pero no lo quiero hacer sin dar un agradecimiento especial, y es a ti, Berta. Gracias por estar aquí, gracias por traernos al Centro del Patrimonio Mundial, a los gestores de los sitios Patrimonio Mundial, gracias por venir en representación del centro. Para nosotros es muy, muy importante que estés aquí y te agradecemos un montón. Desde el primer momento que te comenté que íbamos a hacer este foro, tu apoyo en lo personal y en la parte institucional que representas ha sido enorme, y quería dedicarte este agradecimiento especial delante de todos. Y bueno, está aquí, podéis contar con ella y preguntarle todo aquello que consideréis oportuno, porque es una ocasión única. Así es que muchísimas gracias y un aplauso para ti, Berta. Okay. Y sin más dilación, ahora sí... bueno, si estaba comentándome, María, es verdad, tenéis traducción en inglés y en español. Yo me imagino que ya os lo han comentado afuera, y que aquellos que no comprendáis alguno de los dos idiomas ya tenéis vuestros cascos, pero por si acaso alguien no lo sabía. I was saying, just in case somebody has not taken their headphones, that there is translation for those who don't speak Spanish or English, so in case you don't have them, you can get your headphones outside, and for you to understand whatever we are going to say from now on. I'm sorry not to have mentioned it before, but anyway, if some of you don't have the headphones on, you can go outside and get yours, just for you to be able to listen and know exactly what we're going to talk about from now on. Okay, so let's start. Thank you. Gracias a la mesa, y empezamos con las ponencias. Muchísimas gracias. Un placer. Un gusto que estés por aquí. Sí, yo ahora sí, además
Hola, sí, hola. Hola, sí, hola. Sí.
Se conoce. Are you putting your presentation presentations in there? Yeah, I've got your pin over there. Okay. Yo creía que estaban las presentaciones ahí metidas, están ahí todas, no están en... Es que están metiendo ahora individualmente, por eso yo pensaba que ya estaban metidas. ¿Podéis hacer una meter las presentaciones? You send your presentation in advance?
I sent it to you and to everyone back.
Okay, to me and to the people in charge. So they have their presentations in that stick. So now they are going to just put it for us to be able to start and to do with the presentation. Thank God.
Are we going to sit here and do it?
Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm presenting my friend and colleague now. Yes.
Hola. Muteado.
Vale.
Pasan esos dos aquí, Chuchu.
Esta es la que has copiado ahora mismo del pendrive. Y esa parece la misma.
That's my one, yeah. I think. Let me see.
Estará siempre dos, uno ahora.
Estaré yo y otra persona.
Siempre, o sea que tú.
Yo me voy a quedar aquí. Sí, yo me voy a sentar aquí. Yo presento.
Yo te dejo este para ti, que está muteado.
Sí.
Hola.
How can I go back to the screen?
Scroll.
Go back to the desktop.
Aquí, so. Y después
No, I want to go to the desktop.
Hola. Por favor, nos vamos sentando para empezar.
I just want to check.
Nos vamos sentando para empezar. ¿Cómo estás, cariño?
Space o click.
Yes, okay.
Hola.
Okay, this is good.
Tienes los dos abiertos allí, ¿no? El 5 y el 3. Sí.
Hola. Por favor, van tomando asiento porque vamos a volver a empezar.
Para hablar. Hola. Sí, está abierto. ¿Vale?
Okay.
¿Listo?
Venga, vamos.
De acuerdo. Pues empezamos ahora sí la jornada, con la primera ponencia de este primer foro europeo de gestores de sitios Patrimonio Mundial. Y queríamos comenzar esta sesión conjunta, creando un escenario de dónde ha nacido esta iniciativa y por qué estamos hoy aquí. Y como he mencionado antes, cuando he hablado, esta idea de crear este primer foro europeo de gestores nació del trabajo conjunto y el esfuerzo que llevamos haciendo desde el año 2015 un grupo de personas en representación de las asociaciones europeas de sitios Patrimonio Mundial. Para contarnos un poco esa trayectoria y también para explicarnos el escenario, sobre todo en el marco legal que tenemos que manejar los gestores de sitios Patrimonio Mundial en Europa, tenemos aquí hoy a Chris Blandford. Hay algo curioso sobre Chris y le pedí que me escribiera unas líneas de presentación y lo primero que me puso es que es colega y amigo. Él es colega y amigo, porque finalmente si algo bueno tiene la gestión del patrimonio es que al final haces buenos colegas y amigos por el camino. Bueno, pues Chris, además de ser colega y amigo, es experto en patrimonio mundial, es arquitecto paisajista y lleva más de 40 años de experiencia en el sector del patrimonio y de la conservación. Él es presidente de World Heritage UK y es una persona, digamos, con bastante reconocimiento dentro del Reino Unido. Es además uno de los miembros, digamos, cruciales o del núcleo de trabajo de la Red Europea de Asociaciones de Sitios Patrimonio Mundial, que ha contribuido enormemente con su trabajo en la celebración de este foro. Y sin más dilación, ya le doy la palabra, please, whenever you want, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for those lovely words, Maria. I don't speak Spanish, but I know enough to know what she said. And apologies that I'm not doing this in Spanish. My wonderful wife is my great translator, so when we travel, she does all the work. I just enjoy it. This magical place I have been to several times before. I was again struck as I walked in by the sunlight on the stone and the beauty of the color here. It really is magic, and it's wonderful that we're all here. So I too would like to welcome everybody from me as well. I don't think I need to do too much more introduction of myself. Some of you know who I am, and Maria has just done that for me. She has worked really hard with the help of some of us to get this session underway. So let me explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my best in 20 minutes to sit on a drone and look down on Europe as an overview, to have a look at the governance and frameworks that underlie World Heritage and the great diversity that is in Europe. I'm also going to make reference to the importance of the collaboration and sharing that the European Network for World Heritage Associations does, because in many ways they, as an umbrella organization, represent a huge number of site managers. So what I'm not going to do is steal Berta's thunder by talking about the regional action plan, because she's going to do that for us later on. But I did want to say to you that there are 2 or 3 things in there that directly relate to what this session is all about. Protecting World Heritage properties requires collective action, collective being the important word. Strengthening policy, legal and regulatory frameworks, that's a big one across Europe and in every country. And of course, improving the management planning and monitoring processes. These are all strategic aims, and you as site managers, of course, are already aware of those, and you are at the front line trying to implement much of that. As far as our UNESCO and other national guidance is concerned, I think we all know, as people involved at the, as it were, bottom end of the chain, that the manuals are really helpful, but relatively limited in their ability to be able to use those on the ground when each and every World Heritage site is so different. What we are going to do also is, I think, build on the work that was done in Georgetown in 2024 to address the challenges and opportunities of the role and effective functioning of site managers. So Ang and her team started that last year. This session is very much building on that. And the statement that came out of that session in Malaysia included the 4 things or 5 things you can see on the screen here. And I'm fully expecting that we will all endorse those and indeed perhaps try to create even greater influence. So by way of what the framework and legal underpinning is for World Heritage management across Europe, it's extremely complex. There is a huge variation in the influence and the success of site management in Europe. There is a good amount of information in the 3rd cycle of periodic reporting, but when you dig even deeper, you find that the local issues and challenges and the role for NGO type of associations are way beyond what that document does. So just as an attempt at trying to find a little more detail, the network ran a questionnaire around many of you here to see what you had to say about this. And you can see the topics that were in that questionnaire, and those of you who did answer the call, thank you very much for that. The call tried to get to the point where we understood where World Heritage was really thought through at the national level, the focal points. It tried to understand a little more about what the real challenges were for each of the countries. And it tried to look at whether there was an association or not, that is a World Heritage Association, an NGO, and the influence that it had. So inevitably, no one size fits all. But what is important is there is a common cause, of course, the protection of OUV notwithstanding. And what I learned from the responses to that questionnaire, of course, as I expected, was the dedication and passion of the site managers, who are the front line of local implementation of the convention. And I applaud all of you for that. Sorry, just going back. Quick note to the diagram on the right, which you're not supposed to read in detail, is essentially what that tells you, that just take a reasonably sophisticated country like the UK, then there are 500 organizations involved in World Heritage in the UK. That in a sentence explains why there is so much complexity and diversity. It's probably similar elsewhere. So what's the geography? How do we define Europe? Well, that in itself was a bit of a challenge. So I chose to define it, as you can see on the plan there. One definition is that there are 41 countries. I selected 25 of those to send the questionnaire to, the green and the purple ones on that diagram, and the green very kindly responded. So that was a 72% response, which was really quite good. What also is quite obvious, we all know about, I think, the imbalance in the numbers of World Heritage Sites in countries around the world. The same is true in Europe. So there are probably 41 countries with World Heritage Sites in Europe, with a total of 544 World Heritage Sites, if you use this definition. But but 6 countries only take 273 of those, so 50% of countries, 6 countries is 50%. So there is an imbalance in Europe in the same way as there is internationally, is what I'm saying. Inevitably, some of that is the most sophisticated and the most demanding countries with well-developed governments and governances and well-developed management systems who keep on placing more World Heritage Sites potentially on the list. What it says is that those countries need to share with those that are coming along actually with lesser numbers and question this imbalance in Europe, as indeed UNESCO are doing internationally. So if we look at some of the sweeping generalizations of what came out of that questionnaire, what did it reveal? Nationally, and as I said earlier, there's no time for the detail here, but I just want to make a few simple points for you. These state parties, of course, have focal points, and they vary, but generally speaking, they're very centralized in ministerial places, and they all focus on process much more than management, which for the most part is devolved into local authorities or local organizations. As you would expect in many countries, that pattern is complicated by federal structures, that is, or regional structures which subdivide the countries in many different ways. And just about across the board, there are no separate World Heritage budgets nationally. They are all part of another heritage organization or ministry. Inevitably, because of the cross-cutting nature of World Heritage, that is, if you like, cultural, natural, and mixed, there is a huge amount of fragmentation even in the ministerial level as to who is responsible for World Heritage. So the management of World Heritage Sites is, as you well know, decentralized and devolved to local authorities and organizations, often with minimum funding and often with minimal staff resourcing. So the site managers are the heroes and heroines of this piece. And many of those, I think, feel unempowered without the right amount of resource. And in that respect, the voice that comes from this session is really about that, to raise the need for greater recognition. And despite the international commitment and indeed importance of World Heritage Sites, there are virtually no specific legislative items that independently underpin World Heritage Sites and the importance of them in government legislation. It is changing slightly. The one or two countries such as Finland, the UK and Ireland are developing legislation, and indeed, as an exception, Hungary does have a law that specifically relates to World Heritage. But generally speaking, it's always part of something else. Nor are there any national strategies for World Heritage, which are badly needed, except Ireland, Finland and Norway again. So there are examples of good practice, but it is quite surprising, and particularly I've been pushing for this in the UK for many years. The small numbers of staff who are responsible for management of World Heritage Sites usually share their roles with other responsibilities as well. So I think one thing we can do during this session is to share some good practice and see whether these rather broad, sweeping generalizations I have made are true or not. In terms of local management, I've already said it's very devolved. The numbers, types, and geography of World Heritage Sites and their administration is incredibly varied. It can be local authorities, partnerships, foundations, trusts, government departments and agencies, or destination managers and owners. So it's hardly surprising that the diversity is the way it is. Usually the management is funded locally through some budget or other, and usually there are stakeholders involved, but not everywhere. They're not the classic steering group, as we call it in the UK, isn't necessarily present everywhere. And the site managers' roles and challenges turn out to be quite similar across the board. We will no doubt be talking about those. In terms of the associations that are in Europe, as at the moment, again, variation. So not all countries have an umbrella association. Some of them are funded, are NGO and are funded by government, such as in Italy, France and Spain and so on. Others are NGO but are supported by tourism organizations, such as in Switzerland and Germany. Others are independent. In fact, I think fairly uniquely, WHUK in the UK is independent and unfunded by anybody. We might want to talk about that in a little more detail later. They are, for the most part, relatively informal organizations. Some have constitutions, some don't. They all have a budget, and it varies tremendously from quite a lot to very small. But at the end of the day, the objectives are common to all. So the sharing and networking of World Heritage Site information, of course, is important. And an independent one voice for World Heritage across Europe is really important, or across the country, where countries are already subdivided. Particularly take, for example, Belgium, where the Flemish side and the Walloon side are completely different. And most important of all, I would say, is awareness raising and lobbying. So all of those associations do their best to influence their governments to take World Heritage more seriously. And as I've already said, the vital role that the site managers play in supporting that is, of course, doing their best to make the convention implementable on the ground. What the associations do is help fill the gap between the work that goes on the ground and the more strategic policy making that governments do in their focal point. So what I call filling the gap. And the European Network of World Heritage Associations, which we'll talk about in a moment, is the European voice, that is the whole of Europe, trying to do its best to represent all of the associations in the different countries. Currently, the association has I think it's about 10 members. The striped countries on that plan you can see there. Just by way of comparison, the EU countries are in purple. And it reminds me to say in many ways, I think the message here has to be that there are no boundaries to World Heritage, and that really is what underpins the European network. We as a network of European countries don't really feel that the boundaries should be an interruption to us. So the European Network of World Heritage Associations has grown very well over the last 10 years. It's the 10-year birthday party, you could say, this year of the share and exchanging we have doing, and I need at this point to acknowledge the slides that were provided to me by Chloe Campo. Thank you, Chloe. Chloe has decided she wants me to talk to the slides, so you're not going to see her up on the stand. I was happy to do that, but these are her slides, not mine. Again, it's difficult for you to read, but it makes the point that there has been a constant run of meetings organized by different countries in the last 10 years. We meet once every year, usually through the kindness of one of the government organizations to help sponsor it. And in addition to that, we have a range of technical meetings. So there is a constant dialogue going on between the countries, and there is a particular core group of countries who often are the sponsors and make the effort. And the idea, of course, is to widen that to be a much greater European network. So the origin really was about wanting to learn from others about what their management issues were, and to try to find an organization that would, as Chloe puts it, mutualize certain resources, that is, provide a central, if you like, hub of knowledge that everybody could draw from. But most importantly, to give weight and recognition to World Heritage and then take that on into government places. So it has to be said the European network is still, I wouldn't say it's in its infancy, but it is still very informal and has yet to create a formal constitution, though we are talking about that a great deal. I think it is becoming more recognized. Indeed, the World Heritage Center, with whom we've had a number of meetings, are enthusiastic about it. And the core countries continue to work hard to try to involve their institutional partners that you can see listed there, the World Heritage Center, obviously, advisory bodies and so on. And they will continue to do that. So on behalf of you, the site managers, you can rest assured that that work will continue. So let us use this session in the next couple of days to reinforce all of that, and perhaps to get you even more enthusiastic about persuading your national colleagues to become part of the network. Okay, I think that's enough from me. There are other speakers to come, but I hope that's helpful.
Hello. Yes. Thank you very much, Chris. It's been quite inspiring hear your insight about the framework of the legal framework around Europe. Thank you for that fantastic job you did with this questionnaire that some of you answered, just for you to be able to show this presentation for us today. And thank you for presenting also the European Network of World Heritage Associations. We are quite happy to present this here in our 10th anniversary, as you have said, and we are willing to grow bigger, so we expect to be able to do so. And this first forum is a first step to do so. So, thank you very much. Y ahora voy a dar paso a la siguiente ponente. La siguiente ponente es Anne Minchi. Por favor, Anne, cuando quieras.
So you've got your presentation ready in there? Yes, I think it is. Let me check.
María José,
¿Ves la presentación de Anne? Sí. It's over there. Vale, es que no sabía si...
Genial. Míralo, lo he mandado por WhatsApp. Ok. Os presento entonces a Anne Min Chi. Anne, thank you very much for being here. She comes from so far away that we are happy to have her and to present her here. She last year she celebrated a first Site Managers Forum. The title was "We Are Site Managers." This kind of encouraging site managers to kind of defend what we are and what we are here for. So just let me read some words about her, and then you can follow up with your presentation, okay? So Anne Minchi is the General Manager of Georgetown World Heritage Incorporated from Malaysia. 2003 Convention UNESCO accredited facilitator and a registered conservator under the Department of National Heritage in Malaysia. She specialized in research mobilization, policy making, project management and risk assessment. As a World Heritage Site Manager, she incorporates conservation with disaster risk reduction and intangible cultural heritage safeguarding. Her latest project is to mobilize global heritage communities' support in the establishment of the World Heritage Site Managers Global Network. So thank you very, very much for being here. We are so happy to have you. So go ahead whenever you want.
Yeah, morning, my brother and sister of site managers. Even you are not a site manager, we still call you our brother and sister because we need all the help. So I'm Ang from Malaysia, and thank you, Maria, and thank you, our colleagues in Alhambra, for this opportunity. I was actually very touched to hear the opening speech, thinking about 2125, you know, the future generation of site managers is going to talk about us, of what we are doing here, and what we have done. And I think that is really something that is visionary and encouraging of whatever challenges and issues that we have to deal with today. I'm here with the task to speak on the roles and mandates of World Heritage Site Managers. I would like to use this opportunity to share with you the stories from Georgetown so that, you know, we can explore maybe one examples of the roles and mandates of site managers. I'm from Georgetown Historic Cities. We are World Heritage Site, serial site with Malacca in Malaysia. We are a relatively very young site. It's only 17 years old since 2008. Some of you have been there. You are always to come back. Some of you not yet been there. If it's too cold over here, come over to Malaysia. And if you come to Georgetown, when I'm in the town, the food is on me, so no problem. Yeah, you have a sister of site managers and my colleague back home in Georgetown World Heritage Incorporated. You always have someone to take care of you in Malaysia. So this is a picture of our site. And I was always thinking of, like, you know, within the World Heritage system under the 1972 conventions, where are we? Sorry, Berta, I'm going to go very direct. Yes, we are site managers. Look into the yellow color. We are supposed to work with the center. We work with the advisory bodies. I know you are here, our colleagues from ICROM, IUCN, and ICOMOS. And we are, you know, somehow part of the conventions. But when you read into the operational guidelines, you try to search site managers. It comes out many times. There's no definitions. There's no roles. There's no mandates. I look at it in a good way as a trained political scientist. When no one defines you, you define yourself. And that is crazy. Be careful when you give us that power, because we're going to tell you everything under the sun. And I think that is why we are here, because we see the gap And now, with this movement of the site managers, I think that is the opportunities. I really admire the work that you all are doing over here. But of course, we are also telling you, like people, site managers in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, in the world is also moving forward to the same directions. Who are we? I'm from Georgetown World Heritage Incorporated. Hi to my team back home who's supposed to work now, but I invited them to join the YouTube channel. and our office is actually established as a special purpose vehicle as a World Heritage Site managers. I will really thank the State Party of Malaysia who have put in our office in our dossier. I think that is a movement that we have to start off. In the dossier, when you nominations, that is the time that you invest and start thinking, who is going to be the custodian and taking care of the World Heritage Site? So this is the first step. These are my bosses. My chairman is the Chief Minister of Penang. So he is the highest political power in Penang. And then we also have the Penang State Secretary, Penang State Financial Officer, the Mayor of City Council of Penang, the Executive Council of Tourism and Creative Economy, our local assemblyman, and representative from the Chief Minister Incorporated. So this is the board members that our management team reported to. It is important because registered as a company limited by guarantee under the Company Act of 1965. We receive government money, but we operate like a private company, so it ensures efficiencies. Just Monday, we celebrate the 15th anniversary as a World Heritage Site managers, and I was thinking of so 15 years, I'm now a teenager. What can I do? What can we go further? And what is the next 5 years? What is the next 10 years? And it really struck me to start thinking about this, because whatever that we are doing here among us in this auditorium and with those on the YouTube channels, is we have to not only think about our predecessors who have created the conventions and talk about site management. Now we talk about the site managers, and we have to also think about the youth and the next generation of site management, that they should not be going through the pain that we are going through now, on finance, on resources, on opportunities. I think that's why we all would like to spend this week here together. So site managers, as all you know, we have a site, and this is the site in Georgetown. It's not too big, it's 262 hectares. Property area in the red color zone is about 112. We have our OUV 2, 3, and 4. I will not elaborate further. You just go to the website, you get the information. But I want to tell you the scary part is we have 5,013 gadgeted buildings and sites in our little World Heritage Site. And you will see the task that we have to do is not small. This is the function chart of our office. Is divided into 5 departments. I'm heading the general manager office, and one of the mandates and roles that we have to do is, the admin and finance, human resources, is supported by the Department of Admin and Finance. We also have the Department of Built Environment and Management, so anything cannot talk, buildings, structures, sites, they take care of it. We also have the Department of Cultural Heritage Research and Development, so there's everything else that they have to do, including intangible living heritage research documentations. And of course, whatever that we do, we have to make sure outsiders, our communities, our stakeholders knows it. So we also have the Department of Communication and Collaborations. I asked myself, this is a pictures of the GDL Chai team in front of our office. By the way, this office is one of the most pictured buildings in World Heritage Site. People would like, if you come to Georgetown, please, we inside the office know what you are doing outside when you take photo with our building. So when you post it, we actually can see it, what you are doing, but it's good that people like our buildings. So who are we? Yes, we call ourselves the site managers. But what do we actually do? What is our core business? I always say that I find myself crazy all the time, because every day we are related to the site. I'm living basically with my WhatsApp. You know, in Malaysia, we use a lot of WhatsApp. Maybe also in your country, it never stops. Now I have a time zone difference. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's like 100 WhatsApp. It's like, how do I answer that? And it's all, most of it site related. So who are we? What do we do? And often I feel that I'm crazy, but I'm very happy. I always say this, to meet another crazy site managers in front of me, next to me. I always have this theory: when 2 or more than 2 crazy people are together, we are not crazy. Those I'll say are crazy. We are normal. So who are we? I know we are not UNESCO. We are not part of the UNESCO officers. We work together with UNESCO. We are also not receiving funding from UNESCO. We are not the office that give out money. That is very clear, because still, until today, there are people who come and ask us, hey, UNESCO give you money, you're so good.
Yes, that's true.
No. We work together with UNESCO to protect our convention. That is always a message. Unfortunately, this is still a myth. So maybe we can make the myth reality. UNESCO give us money, no problem. You know, we say, yeah, we got money. You know, maybe in 50 years from here. But I'm very fortunate with the strong support from the state government of Penang, and also the federal government of Malaysia that give us a financial grant. So currently our office is doing more than, I think, about 400 repair incentive projects in our office with the money that we have just received from our government. So it's really something encouraging, you know, but however, we really hope that, you know, it can be more systematic and maintain it on the budget. Of course, we have to fight the money with everyone else, but never give up. Simply just don't give up. Some of you might be civil servants, but I know I'm not. I don't have a pensions. I work just like a company workers, and it happens that I lead the management, that's it. So we are look-alike a civil servant. Today I purposely wear my look-alike uniform of the Penang state government, because I have my identity as part of the government, but the how to say, your contract is different. So what does it mean? Means that, you know, we are here to fill the gap, using the word from Chris, to work with the civil servants to solve the problem for the site. We are the custodians. We have a lot of ownerships. So in my office, we actually collaborate with the ministry level in Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya, and we also attend a lot of meetings on the site-based meetings, be in the World Heritage Site or in Penang in general. So everything about heritage go to Jidao. So it's good to have that identity. Yeah, and we also work very closely with our city councils. There are also people who think that we are the heritage building expert. You know, when you work on where they say, they ask you historian. They think every one of us are historian. I was like, I cannot remember what happened in 1786. Like, I know a little bit, but I'm not historian. I know very well. What we have to really learn is, while as much as the book that we can read, the expert that we engage, I strongly believe that the knowledge is coming from the local communities. They know their site. They live in the site. My site is a cultural site. There are people still maybe don't speak very good English. They don't write books, but they have all the knowledge. So the collaboration between us as a professional, with the public, with the private, and with the local community is important for us in looking at our World Heritage Site in a better way. There's also this identity that I like a lot, is, are we a friend and a member of the community on the site that we are taking care of? For us in Georgetown, I'm very proudly to tell you, yes, we are a friend of the World Heritage Site. We are a friend of the local community. Look at the logos. These are some of the members of communities that we have been working with day to day. It is important for us to get connection with different groups. In particular, in Malaysia, we are very diverse, culturally, linguistically, religionally, and we are from different ethnic groups. So we try to use the World Heritage Site as a way of, like, you know, having a coexistence with everyone peacefully. At the same time, we have the mandates, under the 1970 conventions and all the other conventions that is important. Because again, people will think like, hey, you're a World Heritage Site, you are UNESCO, there's a UNESCO logo there. Everything about UNESCO is like, yeah, come to us, the 2003 convention, the creative economy and things like that. So I see it as opportunities for us to go further to educate globally the global conventions that my country have engaged in, and how can we implement it locally in Georgetown, in our sites. So, and at the same time, like what Maria and a lot of us are doing, we are also event planners. Look at the programs that we do. I'm doing a little bit of advertisement. In case your summer, you haven't decided where to go. In July, from the 5th until the 7th of July, we are going to have our annual heritage celebration. You are welcome to join, it's free. These are among the events we have to do to educate the public about our sites. These are more programs that we do in Georgetown, so that people will come to the World Heritage Site and understand better, just not only taking selfie or photo with the mural painting. Can you please know about more of your identity, more of your heritage, more what we shared and what is the differences. So these are among the strategies that we've been doing. In a nutshell, yes, as site managers, we do site management. In our office, we also do a lot of free consultations. That means that people walk into our office, the communities, we give them consultations for free to tell them, what is the better way to do conservation and repairs, and also help them to identify the materials that they have to use. And we also involve directly on the conservations, including the conservation management plan. We also have a special area plan for Georgetown, building heritage building materials, typology, and so on. We do a lot of educations, we do a lot of documentations, and many, many more. These are a little bit of what the roles and mandates are. I feel like that sometimes, that every morning we woke up and try to understand, actually what do we do? There's everything under the sun, we are doing it. That's why I start off just now by saying that, yes, sometimes I feel I'm crazy. But hearing the stories from the other colleagues, we know that, although we might sound like, what is actually our core business? How do we explain? Like, when I meet my relative during Chinese New Year, they say, hey, what do you do in your job? I was like, yeah, I hire staff, I take care of World Heritage Site, I have to do events. So that is the site manager. Is that the way we want to define it? Or how can we move forward from just being blind and guessing what is the elephant? Last year, as mentioned, we invited some site managers to Georgetown. Thank you to many of you who attended and also give your blessing to us. So we have about 130 participants, which we spent a good 5 days together exploring and sharing of our stories. There is no quick answer on when site managers meet. I can guarantee you on this weekend when you go back home, you still feel like, you feel very good meeting another site managers. You feel normal again, get your balance. And you are encouraged, like, I will find my answer when I go back to my sites. But then, before you are flooded with the day-to-day job, I think it is time for us to think of, like, while we are here, what can we do together? Here, I would like to get some of the main points on the Georgetown declarations, which I will be sharing with many of you on the brochures that we have. I have bring some from Malaysia. Number one is during the symposium, we identified that site manager's role is not always clarified or fully supported, despite that we have strong sense of commitment and passions. We take care of the World Heritage Site. And we want to ensure it to contribute to the well-being of our local community. I think that makes a difference. 2, it is impossible for any individual to take care of this task alone. No way. We need friends, we need colleagues, we need our team. And ideally, stronger management system must be established in each World Heritage property. What do you mean by stronger? What do you mean by system? I think no one will have a standard format, but at least we need to agree that, we need to have a system. And promotion of bottoms-up leadership process, like from all of you, from many of us, is an essential part of any strategy to strengthen the current World Heritage system. I'm not just talking about the convention itself. I'm talking about the whole system, locally, nationally, regionally, and globally. The declaration, 2024 Georgetown Declaration, points to a series of concrete requests by the World Heritage communities. And one of the things that we're also trying to do is a global network to provide a peer-to-peer support and renew energy that will go beyond any single event. So these are one of the main points that I would like to take this opportunity to highlight to all of you is site managers face daily challenges in executing our complex yet essential day-to-day responsibility, including managing and mitigating increasing threats at the World Heritage Site. And while the threats that we face may differ greatly with the applicable management and governance system, as well as the geo-context, we face the same problem, yet we deal with the different settings. But I'm here to tell you, and also tell myself, we are not alone. We are not alone. We are together on this, okay? Another thing, I think we site managers, we site managers possess extensive expertise in local knowledge and know-how. So it is important to give the facilitating, the monitoring conservation indicators to retain the OUV. So please consider if you support on this movement, you can adopt it. It's already on our websites. And as for the global network, which I admire a lot on the European part of it, is like, what we are now moving forward is we focus on encouraging the national level to have a network first. With national level, once we are gathered together, we can work on the regional and the global networks. If you have ideas on this, please, I'm here and we can discuss further on it. I'm doing some publicities here very quickly. The second edition of the symposium will be on the 23rd until 27th of August at Savolento. If you would like to go, please we can discuss on that. We can share the poster with you. And if in case you have time, please be our fellow. Aina was our former fellow. You can ask his experience on that. Everyone are welcome. Spend a month in our office. So this is my last slide. I recall in the opening session we talked about 5 C's. 5 C's is a strategic objective of the center. Here, 5C, I would like to invite you to redefine it by looking at it from the communities. If we empower the communities, including the site managers' communities, we will have a better communications. With a better communication, we can build a more efficient capacity building according to the needs of the community, not what you imagine what we need, but ask what do we actually need. And with a better capacity building, we can have a better conservations. And with better conservations, the convention's credibility will be ensured. This may be another way of thinking about the 5 C's. So with this, I would like to thank this opportunity and hope we have a good session together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite inspiring. And thank you. It's been great having you here. Thanks again for coming. I think that we will have the chance to share and exchange with the rest of the site managers here present. And she's quite available and really eager to learn a little bit more about how things work here in Europe. So whatever you want to share with her, it will be more than welcome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Y ahora la siguiente ponencia viene de manos de Berta de San Cristóbal. Adelante. Bueno, como ya os he avanzado antes, Berta de San Cristóbal es la jefa de la unidad de Europa y América del Norte del Centro del Patrimonio Mundial de la UNESCO. Y para nosotros, reitero mis palabras de antes, pero es importante subrayarlo, es muy importante el contar con el apoyo de la UNESCO para eventos que, como este, reúnen a gestores de sitios patrimonio mundial. Por tanto, la presencia de Berta hoy aquí es esa ratificación del apoyo que ya en su día la Sagen Undu, cuando le planteamos por primera vez hace como un año y pico ya, casi un año y medio, la posibilidad de celebrar este primer foro de la mano de las asociaciones europeas, y le comentamos además que iba a ser aquí en España, bueno, no solo mostró su interés, sino también su apoyo absoluto y bueno, celebró que hubiéramos tomado esta iniciativa. Y finalmente todo ello se formaliza aquí con la presencia de Berta, que agradecemos enormemente. Berta, cuando quieras. Gracias.
María, y he visto que cortabas a Ang, o sea que creo que me vas a cortar a mí también. Es un poco larga mi presentación, pero no te preocupes. So I'm going to speak in English, sorry, but it's very difficult for me to speak in Spanish when I work. I know it may sound weird, but I'm used to working in English and French, so I apologize for the Spanish-speaking colleagues if I oblige you to put on the headphones. Indeed, when Maria mentioned this possibility to me, I thought it would be a good opportunity to introduce to you the recently adopted regional action plan for the region. It was adopted last year by the World Heritage Committee. And as you probably know, this is one of the key outcomes of the third cycle of periodic reporting in the region. This is an action plan that the World Heritage Center made a lot of effort to build it as collaboratively as possible with national focal points and site managers. Site managers contributed rather indirectly, but it's important to recall that it's really built on the input gathered through the detailed questionnaires that were submitted during the cycle. And there was a genuine effort to build an action plan that addressed the challenges that were identified by you as site managers as well. It is organized around 5 strategic objectives, and I have brought copies both in English and French. The small pile is for the French-speaking colleagues. And the idea is to have a practical framework that assists state parties, but also site managers in improving the protection and conservation and management of the properties. Perhaps just one point of clarification also following Chris' presentation. In UNESCO language and the way UNESCO is organized in terms of regions, Europe and North America is one region, and it has 51 state parties. If we take out North America, which only has 2, it's 49. But this is in terms of all the data statistics that you will see coming out of the World Heritage Center will always use this as a reference. So it's 51 for the region. So just before entering into the details of the regional action plan, I think perhaps it's useful to recall what is the periodic reporting exercise and how it led to this action plan. So as you probably know, periodic reporting is one of the key monitoring mechanisms of the World Heritage Convention. It's undertaken approximately every 6 years, every 6 to 8 years, where the state parties of the convention are invited to present their reports to the World Heritage Committee. And contrary to other conventions in UNESCO, for the time being, for the World Heritage Convention, this is done on a regional basis. So these reports are an essential and unique insight into the implementation of the convention at the national level. State parties are requested to cover both legislative and administrative measures, but also the state of conservation of all World Heritage properties in their territory. This is the only opportunity in the life of the convention where states have to report on the state of conservation of all their properties, and they turn to site managers to fill in that information on the state of conservation of the properties. So it's really a critical moment for the convention, and following this period, there is a reflection period that is open. This is the exact period in which we are at now, because Europe and North America was the last region to undertake this exercise. And some of you may have recently participated in the evaluation survey of the periodic reporting exercise, which was shared with not only with states, but also with site managers. And perhaps you have already provided your input. So indeed, periodic reporting is a self-assessment tool. And as any self-assessment tool, of course, it has its limitations. But if perhaps it doesn't give a 100% objective picture of the situation, it gives a 100% reliable picture of the perception of the situation. So it also has value in that. So these are, I'm just recalling on this slide the 4 main purposes of periodic reporting. So first I mentioned is to assess the implementation of the convention on a regional perspective, so regional meaning Europe and North America in this case. But it's also an opportunity for cooperation and shared learning at the state level, but also at site managers level when it comes to transboundary and transnational properties, and there are quite a few in the region. For this cycle, 548 site managers were requested to fill in the questionnaires for their properties, and we receive an incredible rate of 99% completion rate. So this is an opportunity for me on behalf of the center to sincerely thank you, because we know there is a lot of work and energy that goes into these questionnaires, and I hope that by presenting to you the action plan, you see what is the future that is reserved to that information. It doesn't just lie in the desk in the World Heritage Center. So you can access the other key outcome, which is the periodic reporting, the report itself. I won't enter into detail. You can access it online. But what we did this time with the report is to use this opportunity to give a small insight on the implementation of the previous action plan, which was the Helsinki action plan, which at the time was only prepared for Europe, not for Europe and North America. So in this report, you will find a very brief assessment of the level of implementation of the previous action plan. And why is it a brief assessment? It's because there is today no real established mechanisms to follow up and to monitor the implementation of the action plan. And that's one of the main gaps of the periodic reporting process. We do all this effort, we build an action plan, we hope it provides a useful guidance, but we do not have a mechanism to assess the implementation of the action plan itself. So we made a modest effort to use the information that you provided in the SIR cycle to assess the level of implementation of the previous action plan. So let me try to give you an overview of how the action plan for Europe and North America was developed and was structured. So this action plan was shaped by several key elements. So, of course, as I mentioned, first is the results of the SIR cycle of periodic reporting, which were presented by the state parties through the online questionnaires that I'm sure you're all aware of. Then there was a 3-day consultation workshop at UNESCO headquarters in December 2023. That was supported by Germany and Ireland, and which benefited with the participation of almost all state parties. Not all of them, but really a good turnover of state parties. And then we prepared a draft of the action plan. It was circulated again to all 51 state parties. And based on this pre-final draft, 18 state parties provided detailed comments on the final draft. It has to be understood in light of a few guiding principles. One of the guiding principles is that cultural and natural heritage are interconnected. They should not be addressed separately. And so it recognizes, it's built on the idea that World Heritage Sites are the result of complex processes of intertwined social and environmental dynamics. And so it looks at promoting a holistic approach to the protection and management, not a one that would separate culture and nature, but one that would approach it in an integral way. The second guiding principle is that World Heritage is indeed very important for UNESCO, but it is to be used as a catalyst for broader heritage conservation. So indeed, the action plan is focused on World Heritage properties, but it has been shaped in a way to encourage this idea of World Heritage as a catalyst for best practice in heritage conservation, because many cultural and natural properties face similar challenges to whether they are World Heritage or not. So this was also another guiding principle. And the third guiding principle is also and it brings back to something that Ang was presenting earlier, is the interdependence of the famous 5 Cs. So not to be seen as a sort of hierarchy between credibility, conservation, communities, but really as interconnected objectives, in which capacity building and communication are key enablers to achieve the other 3, conservation, credibility, and communities. And if you have gone through this action plan, I think hopefully you have seen that there is a stronger emphasis than on the previous one on community involvement. And I can only but concur with what Ang was saying, that communities have to be at the heart of any effective conservation effort. So I've brought this is very small, but I've brought the copies. Obviously it's online, but please help yourself. I would recall that it's important to see the regional action plan as a flexible framework that can be adapted by all state parties in the region. As Chris was mentioning, Europe and North America is extremely diverse. It's diverse certainly in terms of number of inscribed properties, but also on the type of properties, on the balance between natural and cultural properties inside every of these states, including in the states that have the highest number of properties inscribed. So it is intended to be used as a flexible framework, but hopefully one that addresses the most common challenges identified at the national level, while also reflecting some of the priorities at the regional level. And in that regard, if you compare with action plans for other regions, you will certainly see a substantive difference in some of the focus. So the idea is that the strategic objectives and the expected outcomes, so what you see on the screen, are relevant to all state parties. And then when we get to the activities are to be understood as a sort of menu of options. It is not expected that all activities are relevant for all sites or for all state parties, but it is expected that the expected outcomes and the strategic objectives are. So the activities are rather a wide range of choices that can be tailored to each state party's specific priorities, specific institutional framework, and of course also resource availability, because obviously there is also wide differences in terms of resources when you look at the different state parties in the region. We have also developed indicators to monitor the implementation. These are not found in the booklet because it would be very extensive, but they are found in the online version. So the reasons of my presence here is also to seek your feedback on this action plan and to have a dialogue on how can this be a practical tool in your daily work, how can you translate it somehow in your daily management work. And of course, an invitation to you to translate it into your own language and to disseminate as much as possible. I know there is an ongoing translation into German, for instance. And so that's also why we facilitated this user-friendly version. Otherwise, it would have just been a committee document, which is not so appealing, not even to national focal points. So we do hope that this user-friendly version can help for you to take ownership of it. So let me briefly describe, and Maria, you stop me when I need to stop the strategic objective.
5 more minutes?
5 more minutes. So there are 5 strategic objectives. I have 1 minute per strategic objective. Wow, that's... And again, you will see in the strategic objectives, not all can be addressed at the level of the site manager, but the site manager can play a role in advocacy and in lobbying, as Chris was saying. So the first one is really about the policy level. It is strengthening policy and legal and regulatory frameworks to ensure the protection of outstanding universal value through good governance and effective management of World Heritage properties. So it looks at prioritizing heritage protection in public policies, and not only in those policies that are strictly related to culture, but also on policies that are related to inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Another expected outcome under this strategic objective is about ensuring the alignment of the existing legal and regulatory frameworks with the World Heritage Convention. Chris was mentioning earlier that there are very few separate legislation or strategies dedicated to World Heritage. The action plan doesn't advocate for a separate strategy, but advocates at least of an alignment of the existing ones. Under these strategic objectives, you will also find the expected outcome related to integrated management approach beyond the boundaries of the World Heritage. So World Heritage, as you know, is not just the boundaries as inscribed, there are also buffer zones, there are a wider setting, and it really advocates for an integrated approach, and I'm sure Ikram will give you some examples of the integrated management approach beyond site boundaries. And another expected outcome is the intersectoral collaboration for World Heritage Management. And the last one under this strategic objective, which is fundamental, is the systematic use of impact assessment, including strategic environmental assessment, to identify protection threats and mitigation measures for World Heritage properties. The second objective here, the involvement of site managers, is perhaps more direct and more easy to grasp, which is really the management planning and monitoring process to ensure long-term preservation. So we see in Europe and North America, most of the properties have an official document called management plan, but the picture looks different when you look at how effectively are those management plans really implemented, and how many of them are formally recognized as a tool, as a planning tool, as a protection tool. This strategic objective also looks at participatory planning process, so going back to really the key involvement of local communities, and in some of the state parties in this region also of indigenous people recognized as such under the UN framework. This is also about integrating World Heritage into broader management, into broader planning processes, and also, of course, on monitoring. So the management plan exists, but how is it actually monitored? How is it actually tracked? And when it's monitored, how the information gathered through monitoring and evaluation process helps reshaping, updating those management plans. The third strategic objective, I think it's one that you won't necessarily find in action plans in other regions, which is about positioning resilient thinking and emergency preparedness, disaster risk management, and climate change mitigation adaptation at the heart of conservation and management efforts of World Heritage properties. And I will just say, because I know IUCN is the one making this presentation, not only to natural World Heritage properties, but also cultural and natural. And it's also about recovery process and restoration process and recovery process that are driven by the outstanding universal value and not driven by other considerations. I'm running out of time, so a word about the strategic objective number 4, which is what I was saying earlier about using World Heritage as a space for best practice for heritage management in general. And not just for the World Heritage system. And this is about harnessing the full potential of these properties as drivers for sustainable development in the different aspects of sustainable development. It's also about making sure that participation of communities is a meaningful participation, it's not just ticking boxes. And this is also the strategic objective that relates, that has some of the expected outcomes that are related to sustainable tourism and to making sure that the benefits of tourism that are generated by World Heritage properties go back both to communities and both into heritage preservation. And for that, to make sure that the heritage institutions are involved in designing the tourism strategies. The last strategic objective is one perhaps that concerns a bit less the site manager, which is about the credibility of the World Heritage List. Again, not sure that you will find this strategic objective in other action plans, but of course for the region that has almost half of the properties inscribed on the World Heritage List. If you take the 51 state parties I was mentioning, this is 47% of the properties. And of course, acknowledging the diversity of situations within the region. But at the global level, this is pretty impressive, so it seemed natural for focal points to add a strategic objective on the credibility of the process behind a future nomination. Can I have 2 more minutes?
You tell me with those eyes, of course.
So we are aiming at having a midterm evaluation of the cycle in 2027. To be very honest with you, we do not, UNESCO doesn't have the means, the financial means to organize that midterm review. If we were able to accompany with some level of engagement, the cycle was thanks to the support of Germany and Ireland, and we will need to mobilize other state parties to support the mid-cycle review to make sure that this action plan, again, it's used as a daily tool in your work, but it's also we can have a sort of a picture of how far implementation has advanced. So I will skip the slide on indicators. So I will just say that, and I think Chris mentioned that the full implementation of the convention in general, but of this regional action plan specifically, depends on the collective efforts of all actors involved, and of course that involves site managers. There is an encouragement at the national level to break down or to translate this action plan into regional action plan into national action plan, but the only possibility for this action plan to be really a useful tool, to be disseminated, to be adopted, is that the site managers relate to them. You are the ones who will can bring this action plan to life. You are at the front line of managing most of the challenges that this action plan has put on the forefront, and so your role is essential at the site level in implementing those activities that are most relevant, but also in terms of advocacy at the national level to help shaping the success of this action plan going forward. So this was about explaining I think is the gap that Chris was also referring to, seeing site managers as really this connecting this local action and the global goals. And I had a slide about not only the goals of the convention, of the World Heritage Convention, but about this broader development agenda to which the convention connects, and that several instruments that you're familiar with, like the Policy for Sustainable Development, of the most recent policy on climate change, has sought to connect.
And that's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I know there is a lot to say, a lot of work behind all what you have told us. But now we have at least a hint of what is behind this periodic report that we can take. You've got it there available. She brought it. Thank you very much for bringing it for us.
The ministry will support the translation.
Okay. Okay, so yes, just to announce one thing. We are having now Albert de Jiménez from IUCN. I will introduce you to him now, but I just want to make an announcement. As we are running a little bit late, now I think that the best thing to do is for him to have his presentation, and then we will have the coffee break. I'm sure you will be willing to have a coffee break. And then I've asked Celia if she doesn't mind, and she doesn't. So thank you, Celia, for giving us the chance to have an earlier coffee break, just to stick to the program after the presentation of Alfred. So Alfred, can you come? Sí, estaba diciendo que le he pedido a Celia permiso para tener el coffee break antes de su presentación en vez de después. Entonces ella me ha dicho que magnífico, con lo cual nos podremos adaptar un poco más al programa y hacer la parada del coffee break a la hora prevista justo después de la presentación de Alfred. Y además creo que ya todos tenemos ganas de una paradita.
See if that works.
¿Está listo? Gracias.
Okay.
Bueno, pues ahora permitidme que os presente a Alfred, que es otro de nuestros ponentes de lujo hoy aquí. Bienvenido. Bienvenido a España. Welcome to Spain. He comes straight from New York, USA. And I'm going to read a little bit about his CV, just for you to know about his background, okay? So Alfred is joining us as the lead of World Heritage in the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas. He is also the Director of International Policy at the Wildlife Conservation Society. He has worked in conservation for more than 15 years and currently focuses on global policy frameworks addressing biodiversity, protected areas, wildlife, trade, migratory species, pandemics, climate change, food systems, and more. He has engaged with more 30 World Heritage Sites through the works of Wild Conservation Society and has co-authored papers in scientific and policy journals on protected and conserved areas. So, thanks again for being here. It's a pleasure and a privilege, so go ahead whenever you want.
Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you to you and the Alliance for inviting IUCN to provide remarks at this opening plenary. As Maria mentioned, I'm here representing the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which is the official advisory body on natural heritage under the convention. I'll be talking today about how we can mobilize heritage leaders, which is all of you, to address the climate-related challenges and risks that we all face in our respective World Heritage Sites. Before we get to some of the more dire content that you can see alluded to on this slide, though, I want to start with a blank slate. And I do this a lot in talks that I give in my day job. Sure.
For the translators to be able to
Of course.
Okay.
¿Escuchan? Okay. So one thing that I often do when starting a talk is ask the audience to close their eyes and to say the word nature aloud to themselves and think about what images come to mind. Sometimes people, we would normally do a show of hands, but for time we won't. I ask if they see plants or animals or hydrological features, rivers or waterfalls. I ask if they see people. I ask if they see people interacting with those natural features. I ask if they see human-made structures. And the reason I go through this exercise is to try and sense check where everybody is on their understanding of nature, because we often bring very different interpretations of that term to these discussions. Now, here in the World Heritage community, I think the World Heritage Convention and community is a leader on dissolving that boundary between natural and cultural heritage. Just making sure I can speak in the microphone. So I think that we are operating from a very good starting point and seeing the inherent linkages between the two as we conserve our heritage more broadly. Brief overview of today. I'll talk very briefly about the climate crisis and then the risks to our heritage from the climate crisis. I will talk about the IUCN, the organization I'm here representing, and then how we can all respond together, including with all of you as site managers, to address the climate challenge. So first, on the climate crisis, many of you are familiar with the local and global impacts of the climate crisis: increased storms, floods, droughts, heat waves. And although it's a challenging subject, I think it's worth addressing up front that there are already climate-related deaths, right? There are heat mortality events that take place in places like Europe, which is warming faster than other parts of the world. And we can trace these heat anomalies to heat mortality events. And one point I want to make in addition to this is that the impacts are not distributed equally from a gender perspective, with women being more impacted than men, and from a geographic perspective, with Southern Europe facing more significant impacts from these heat events. It isn't just heat, of course. Climate change causes a variety of impacts. You can see from the European State of the Climate Report a variety of things ranging from those heat waves to wildfires to storms and windstorms. And then importantly in the light blue you can see floods. And I think there's a flood in the province of Valencia where we know that there were tragic outcomes from flooding in October 2024. Across the continent, as referenced in this report, hundreds of lives lost, again, many not so far from here, billions of euros in damages, hundreds of thousands of people displaced or had their livelihoods disrupted, their homes erased, and importantly, there were impacts on culture. So as we think about the different types of impacts of climate change, it's important for us to think about how and why our culture, both cultural, natural, and mixed, can be affected. If we go back to that State of the Climate report, you can see the places in Spain, and I'm just choosing Spain because we're here. You can see in Spain where the river network experienced floods over the given thresholds. And if we very crudely overlay the map of Spanish World Heritage Sites, you can see this high correlation. And that doesn't do it perfectly, but I think the idea gets across. And it's because we built so much of our heritage sites and we've developed so much of our culture around places like rivers and coastlines that enabled us to meet, to share culture, to develop culture. It's not just Spain. There have been studies done on low-lying World Heritage Sites around the Mediterranean, documenting the significant and projected impacts of flooding and erosion. So we're going to see, again, those diverse impacts affecting different sites differently, but we have a strong correlation between where the sites are located and these potential impacts. And it's not just those where happen to be cultural sites. Natural World Heritage Sites as well are projected to experience extreme impacts. One study looking into the future under more significant climate projections saw that most will be impacted by heat or drought and other factors. So you can check out that paper if you have a bit more time. And the organization I work with, IUCN, has done some exhaustive research into where climate change is already impacting natural World Heritage Sites, for example, with 1/3 of them currently registering very significant impacts. But again, if we look to that last study and project outwards under different climate scenarios, we can see that a far greater proportion or number stand to be affected in the future under current climate projections. It's also worth noting that climate ranks above many other threats if you look across the Natural World Heritage Site portfolio, natural and mixed. I will move through this on the interest of time, but you can see some of the impacts documented by IUCN when undertaking that research. And IUCN also works with our partners at UNESCO and other civil society organizations to produce research on very specific topics, where you can find a variety of statistics about the impacts of climate change. Pulling out here some about the 60% of properties in the Mediterranean region reporting risks, 60% of forests experiencing fire events and other threats that are climate related. By 2050, under current climate projections, all World Heritage Sites with coral reefs will be facing significant bleaching and other climate-related events. But I want to pull out two in particular. The first is that 1 out of 6 cultural heritage properties are under threat from climate change externalities. Again, if we look forward into the future under more drastic climate scenarios, we can expect that this is an underestimate. A far greater number will be affected. And then secondly, 1 out of 3 glaciers in climate change properties will disappear by 2050. And I want to elaborate on this one just for a moment. There's huge discrepancies in how climate change is affecting glaciers. These are some from the State of the European Climate Report. And that has to do with different geographic factors and hydrological factors. But that great variation also hints at the diversity of glaciers and how we interact with them. So the report produced by UNESCO in partnership with IUCN and others demonstrated that these disappearing glaciers have impacts for the disappearance of heritage, of traditional practices, of communities that have built themselves around this. This isn't a new concept necessarily. You've seen other reports looking at the concurrence of biological diversity and cultural diversity. You can see that many of the sites that we identify as being of uniquely high biodiversity are also archaeological sites or have religious or spiritual significance. And this is part of a broader analysis that our colleagues at UNESCO and ICOMOS and others have put together around the threats from climate change to our cultural traditions and our cultural heritage. So there are many ways in which climate change threatens not only these glaciers or very specific features, but entire ways of life. And in that way, we're seeing climate change further emphasize the connections between nature and culture and further threaten the stability of the entire heritage system. Very briefly, on IUCN, the organization that I come from, we are actually a union of 1,400 member organizations, which includes governments, NGOs, and others. And those member organizations provide feedback or direction to the, I think this may, let's see if that helps. They provide feedback. Oops, I was wrong. That's great. Okay, we'll go back to it. They provide feedback to the Secretariat in Gland, Switzerland, as well as the 7 expert commissions, and I'm here representing one of those expert commissions. Collectively, the IUCN, its expert commissions and Secretariat, work with ICROM and ICOMOS, as well as, of course, UNESCO, and through UNESCO, the states parties to the convention, on a variety of topics, and as part of our role as the advisory body on natural heritage. So those include evaluation of new nominations, reactive monitoring processes, connecting back to those global goals, as was just mentioned. But about the WCPA more specifically, which I'm here representing, I want to pull out a couple of figures. We have thousands of members all over the world who volunteer their time in an expert capacity. They have vast knowledge across the network on World Heritage topics and on World Heritage sites. You can see there's a broad geographic distribution with an increasing number of members from underrepresented regions. And importantly, in 2024, we provided guidance to 88 governments. And that, if we go back here, it's grayed out, you can see that we produce publications and technical briefs and very specific tools that can empower governments, including potentially site managers of World Heritage sites, on how to address challenges to the protected and conserved area estate. Within the WCPA, we try and accomplish or deal with emerging topics through through specialist groups and leads. So I wanted to highlight here that under the leadership of Dr. Madhu Rao, the chair of the WCPA, we have groups on things like governance, equity, and rights, on tourism, on cultural and spiritual value of protected areas. Again, WCPA WCPA and the IUCN are operating in the same world that I hope we all are, where there is a deep connection between cultural practices and people and heritage and these natural features that we're looking to conserve. I'm excited to sort of announce here that we're starting a new specialist group on World Heritage within the WCPA. So I'll be working on setting that up this year, and I invite any of you who are WCPA members or who would like to be to participate in this specialist group. We hope to be building up the types of resources that respond to real needs identified by site managers. So the more site managers who engage with this, the stronger our outputs will be. And of course, we want to help deliver on IUCN's World Heritage Strategy. That includes a balanced, credible list. It includes inspiring new audiences and enhancing technical credibility. And importantly, emphasizing those links between nature and culture. We do contribute significantly to the delivery of global biodiversity goals, such as the Target 3 in the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework on 30 by 30. You can see how IUCN products connect into those global agendas, and I think it would be great to explore further how we can generate more around World Heritage within these global agendas. But I want to focus this last part in particular on one aspect. And well-connected in the global 30 by 30 commitment tends to refer to structural connectivity, how this forest patch connects through a corridor to that forest patch. But I like to think about it in other ways, which is how our global protected and conserved area estate is connected and how we're connected to it, how our futures are connected to it. So when we have drought events, there are local causes, but there are also drivers that exist on a global scale that are far outside of a site manager's control or a national government's control. And I think it's important to take that into account and think about what we as a World Heritage community can do to address this. So in some ways, there are exciting natural contributions. So here you can see the sequestration of forests in World Heritage properties around the world and the way that that mitigates some of those increasing emissions that you saw in the last slide, which is really fantastic and a nice attribute or contribution of World Heritage. However, we're seeing those sites become increasingly, their emissions are increasing as they encounter fire and other events that operate in a negative feedback loop with climate. So we're facing some headwinds here when we think about the stability overall of our system and the contributions of World Heritage to mitigate climate change. How do we address this? Well, some people have thought about how we can handle this within our World Heritage processes, amending the operational guidelines to take into account the climate change policy within World Heritage and think about how we can measure things at the site level. But I would also argue that we need to think bigger, right? Many of the emissions that are highlighted in the slide where I showed the increasing emissions are because there are people all over the world who want to do things like travel to come visit these incredible World Heritage sites. And we have to create the systems and the space to allow people to connect with World Heritage. It's shared heritage, right? It's something we all want to participate in. So it's good that we do that. The challenge is that in aggregate, you end up with challenge in developing and meeting emissions targets. And I have Europe here because we're in Europe, but Europe is actually generally a climate leader, and I'm from the US, so I digress. There are these moments, though, that are really important based on wherever we are in whatever collection or alliance of site managers that we're a part of. So at at the climate COP later this year, UNFCCC COP30, before that, countries around the world are supposed to submit new climate targets for 2035, which makes this moment an important one to build political momentum. As you can see, the vast majority of global emissions, are not yet represented in these commitments. They will probably trickle in over the course of this year. But it's worth thinking about how we as a heritage community can engage in these conversations to build ambition on emissions reductions. So I don't know too much about the Climate Heritage Network, but I saw that come across my desk. It would be great to think about how we can link existing initiatives with the work that IUCN does to mobilize political will around emissions cuts and climate change mitigation and adaptation. Again, creating a bigger partnership, something that's more than the sum of our parts when it comes to raising that ambition on climate change. And I'll end here with this slide. This is a photo taken in Tikal National Park, which I had the great fortune of visiting in Guatemala. And it's amazing to visit World Heritage sites that might be archaeological sites or other things, because you see incredible civilizations and their own connections between nature and culture and how it looks so different or has been transformed by these big societal changes. And I think as we navigate through 2025 and head through the next years and these critical years and decade for climate change, we will have choices about how people look back in thousands of years and reflect on our ability to manage the nature-culture interactions inherent to climate change and to preserve our heritage for their appreciation and cultural well-being. And I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Thank you for this review about IUCN and what you're doing and what your position about climate change is. I think it can help a lot with us site managers fighting climate change risks. And then, as announced before, we are going to stop now for the coffee break.